Yes.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's entirely virtual meeting of the Oakland Mills Community Association Village Board. We're going to start with our usual administrative items, the first being approval of minutes from the January 28th meeting. Is there a motion to approve? I see a motion from Bill. Is there a second to that motion? Second from Andrew. Andrew, is your hand up to, oh, okay. Any I'm not used to running these virtual meetings. Any discussion of the minutes? All right, all in favor of approving? 1, 2, 3, Paulette?
She has a
4,
thumbs up.
4, 0, 0, okay. Next is approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve? I got a motion from Paulette. I got a second from Bill. Any discussion of tonight's agenda? Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 0. Okay. Next, we have resident remarks. Any residents wishing to make remarks to the board has up to 3 minutes. And if you'd like to make remarks, just raise your hand in Zoom and I will call on you in the order that the hands go up. Remarks going once, going twice. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. So our first item of new business is, I believe this is the start of the NRAC process for the proposed addition of a shed to Bamyan Halal Meat up in the Thunder Hill Neighborhood Center area. So looks like Brigida has shared the application, and I think we have Mr. Soltani with us as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, very good. As I think we've experienced with some other developments, the non-residential process is a bit different than the residential process in that it doesn't start in a RAC meeting, a resident architecture meeting. It actually is in a public meeting of the full board where this is introduced, and then of course there is a comment period. So the proposal goes out publicly, goes onto the Oakland Mills Village website, and is open for a comment period. The application comments, etc., are reviewed by our non-residential architecture advisory committee, the NRAC, who ultimately advised the architecture chair, Andrew, on a decision. And then, of course, Andrew can enter his decision at the end of the process. And the appeal process is the usual appeal process where if there is an appeal, it comes to the full board sitting as the architecture committee to hear the appeal and then make a final determination on the application. Brigida, Mike, did I miss anything there?
No.
All right, very good. Mike, I guess I can turn it over to both you and to Mr. Soltani to present the application.
That would be fine, and I appreciate your introduction. So what we'd like to do here is add a 10 by 12 storage shed behind the south side of the building. It will not be attached to the building or any other object. He's going to store dry goods and things like that. And yeah, if you want, you could slide right down to the picture of the shed. And that's pictures of the shed. And then if you scroll back up just one more slide, you'll see where it's physically located, or where it will be physically located. That's the dumpster, tentative shed spot, and the entrance to the building. So he's behind the building, behind the dumpster. And at that point, I'd let Mr. Soltani give you a little background on the store and himself.
Sure, sir. Thank you for everyone joining the meeting tonight. My name is Mohammed Soltani. So I've been living in the neighborhood for almost 13 years now. and my kids raised in this neighborhood in this schools. So I pretty much love this neighborhood just like everyone else. We love to see this neighborhood clean and good, looking good. Our intention is not at all to make this neighborhood look like very commercial or too much business around. So this place that we chose to put that storage box, it's really essential for our business. We're kind of like we wait to the last minute if we find any other ways, but unfortunately we couldn't. So that's something really important for our business. And that area that we chose, so the left side is covered completely with the business that we are renting, and the right side is the daycare, which is also completely covered, and the which is behind is the dumpster, which covered by the from the Thunder Hill Road. So it's completely like a hidden place. It's like really not somewhere that people can see it. But on the other side, we are not going to put like a rusty box to make the neighborhood look bad. They're going to be a pretty much clean, those storage that they build in Costco's or Home Depot. So it's going to be a very nice and clean storage room. So but the point is like it's a very essential for our business. Besides, we have a grocery store, but on the side we sell like carpets and kitchenwares. As we do have a huge amount of customer for those items. So these items will basically food will not be in there. So this will be like probably carpets, kitchenwares, and mostly like non-food items. And I'm hoping that everyone is agree with us and approve our application.
And this is
Okay,
where
thank
I
you,
turn it
Mr.
back
Sultani.
over to you, Jonathan.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Sultani. So at this point, really, we can open it up for members of the board if you have any questions.
I know that the committees like the architecture committees like like to have measurements of the shed, like how many feet wide and feet tall and feet long. So I think that they probably would ask for that. But other than that, I don't think I have any questions at all.
Yeah, that is true, Andrew. I believe the NRAC will want to know the I mean, it's great that we have the photograph as well as the plat, but yeah, they'll certainly, I think, ask for the dimensions unless it's already. Oops, nope. I just have the pictures as one of the attachments. Mike, are the dimensions anywhere else
Yeah,
in the
the
full package?
dimension is written on the application. It's 10 feet, 12 feet long and 10 feet wide.
There it is.
Oh, okay. So probably the third piece of information I'll ask for is the height.
Yeah, the height of those storage rooms are usually standard. They're, I believe, like 10 feet tall.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Good point. Bill?
Yes, I have one question. In the application, it says it will be used for storage and possibly grains or canned food, non-refrigerated food. And then in your presentation, you were saying that it's probably rugs, maybe a few other items. And my one concern would be my one concern would be food-wise would be attracting animals out there, unless it was all heavily canned and kept clean. That would be fine if there's any kind of grain storage, whatever, depending on the containers. And if a little bit of that would get on the floor, that might attract animals. So that would be the only concern. And I know you said that you want to keep things very, very clean, et cetera. So that would be just one concern would be any food gets stored there that no crumbs or anything wind up on the floor there and potentially attract animals.
So the basically use of the purpose of that storage box is for non-food items. But just in case, like, let's say if we are, for any reason, we have to store some kind of non-refrigerated food like cans and beans in the cans. So we've been running this store. It's a food store. We're also dealing with fresh meat, fresh vegetables, and of course other frozen and non-frozen foods. So we are certified, like we have a safe food handling license. So we're pretty much familiar, like to how to keep the area clean to make sure there's no moistures, no rags, no like rats or ants or this kind of animals, insects. Thank you very much for that question.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions? Karen?
Yeah, first of all, I won't, since I live down the street, I just want to say that Mr. Sultani is a very good neighbor. He runs a very nice business and a lot of people, I think, frequent there. So we're very glad to have him in the neighborhood. My only concern about the storage bin is making sure that it's secure. Bill asked a great question about wild animals, because I know we have raccoons, foxes, and all that kind of stuff. But I would be more concerned about people breaking into it and making sure that you have a plan to keep it secured at night and when you're not, I mean, during the day you'll probably be in and out of it, but that would only be my one concern, is just making sure that no one can break into it.
Well, thank you very much for that comment. I really appreciate that. And thank you for a question. So there will be, like, just like a regular store, there will be a door and there will be a lock. At the end of the day, we're going to lock it. And beside that, we are expanding our security cameras to put outside the building as soon as we have. So we make sure that that the storage room is safe 24 hours.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Karen. Anything else from the board? All right. Well, Mr. Sultani, thank you so much for submitting this, along with photographs and everything. I think that'll be very helpful to the NRAC. And barring any further comments or questions from the board, this will now start our public review period. So Brigida and Mike will work to get that out on our website, et cetera, for the public period. And from then, that NRAC process that I described takes over, and anything comes back in those comments. Of course, Mike will share those comments with you so that you can consider them before you submit the what's really considered the final application for Andrew's ultimate consideration as the architecture chair.
Sure.
But with
Thank you
that,
very
I
much.
think we are all finished tonight, unless Brigida or Mike, I missed anything.
No,
I mean, this
I
was
had
pretty
forgotten.
straightforward.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about the public comment period, but thank you for
Sure.
bringing that up. I have NRAC tentatively scheduled, but I have to reschedule that for after the comment period. So thank you. I almost missed this step, but the
Thank you
checks
very
and
much. Thank
balances
you for
call.
having me. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sultani. We'll be back in touch with you very
You're very
soon.
welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mike. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, our next new business item is a proposal from the Election Monitoring Committee. And their proposal is a request that the village board allows the EMC to provide in writing, if asked by an Oakland Mills resident prior to the candidate application submission deadline, a list of residents who have submitted and approved. Oh, it's on the screen. I'm going to stop reading it now. I was looking at the attachment on my other monitor and didn't realize it's on this screen.
I can't see it. I mean, it's too little for
Okay,
me on my
I'll read it.
phone.
I'll read it. So to pick up where I was, if asked by an Oakland Mills resident prior to the candidate application submission deadline, a list of residents who have submitted an approved application. This will increase openness and transparency in village board elections by letting other potential candidates know who is and who is not in the race. The EMC hopes this transparency will provide more active participation by village residents. So as a new business item, we don't normally vote tonight. We can have some discussion on it, consider it for a couple of weeks, and then if a member of the board chooses so, can bring it back as old business at the next meeting for ultimately a vote, if we want to take a vote on this. So with that said, I'll go to the board again. I actually have one or two questions, but any members of the board have question or comment?
John? John, can you
Hi,
hear me?
Ginny. Yes.
I don't, there's some members of the election committee I think are online. If you have any questions for us, or if you want us to give you some real quick background, I'd be happy to do that.
Sure.
Okay, I know this isn't being done in any village, but if somebody files for the county, the state, the federal government, to be Pope, never mind, forget that. People know about it. And then they can make a decision as to whether, well, I love that person. That person's great. They will represent me. Or, my God, you really got to be kidding. I am going to run. And that's just an open process. So I guess we didn't understand why this wasn't occurring at the village level, since it's an HOA. And the communities involved, it would seem that this would be something that would be just expected, that the village would share who's running, so that you could make an intelligent decision as to whether you want to file or not, whether they represent your point of view. I don't understand the secrecy that's been, I don't mean that in a negative way, but why it's been such a secret that can only be disclosed after the fact, which removes the choice option for our residents. So we've been told that no other village does this, but that has never stopped Oakland Mills. I remember when I was on the board as the CA rep, you guys would do many things where I'd constantly be complimenting you on your first. Could you please send that letter to the other villages so that they would follow your leadership role. So you guys have always been a leader, and I guess we're asking you to do that here. Now, we don't want a burden on the staff, so we're willing to take on that workload, which could be very little, but it's just a matter of really open and transparent communication with the residents, which seems like a no-brainer. You would be the first village to do that, is my understanding, I think, from Bagita. But that's never stopped you in the past. So if it's good enough for the feds and the state and the county electorate, it should be good. It should be more than good enough for Oakland Mills. I don't know if anybody else on the committee wants to say anything else, but we really would appreciate your support.
All right. Thank you, Ginny. Questions from the board? I know I have a couple. Bill?
Yes, this is by way of a statement. As long as, my opinion, as long as our OMCA articles of incorporation and bylaws would allow this, I would be for just as soon as someone fills out the paperwork to run and turns that in, that's put up on our Oakland Mills website, as opposed to requiring people to write in, etc. That's just me. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
I'll second Bill. I agree with that.
So I have a question, and Brigitte, I guess I'm putting you on the spot and directing it to you, but you don't necessarily need to have the answer tonight. I guess my question is, when in our legal documents is someone actually considered a candidate? Is it at the moment they turn in that application, or is it when the deadline closes and we've kind of, certified that they are actually able to run in Oakland Mills? I've never gotten involved in the behind the scenes process because as a candidate, I shouldn't. I just want to make sure that we're not, if we do something like this, that we're not basically presenting people as candidates before they actually are candidates, according to, as Bill was saying, according to our articles of incorporation, bylaws, et cetera.
So you're not putting me on the spot because of the election monitoring committee asked me several questions themselves. So and look, my brain is in snow mode. I totally forgot what you just asked. Oh my gosh.
I'm
So,
wondering-
so,
Oh,
so,
okay.
so to
sorry.
simplify to simplify my question, when are you actually a candidate in Oakland Mills? And when are you in the race? Is it from the time you turn in the application, or is there some process like after the deadline where, you know, someone checks that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and that's when we actually have candidates?
No,
Yes.
so
I'm worried about the kind of the privacy and when is someone actually a
absolutely.
candidate part versus when are they maybe kicking the tires?
No, we discussed that, and basically what happens is an application is turned in, and then I do what is listed in the election guidelines to make sure that they are a viable candidate by you know, whether they are a tenant or an owner. I follow the proper procedures. I send that information to the election committee to acknowledge that yes, they are officially a candidate. They meet all the requirements. And then they are considered a candidate. So when I've done it, I have worked with the election monitoring committee as soon as I can get the information to them, and then they get a response back to me that, you know, okay, yes, they're a candidate, and then they're on the list. So from the time a person turns in an application, it's just whatever that turnaround is,
Okay.
to, like I said, look at their, you know, if they are eligible and a viable candidate, and then sending it to the EMC to let them acknowledge it as well.
Okay, so they are considered candidates before the deadline, once they go through the basic checks that they can be candidates.
Yeah,
Yes.
And
Okay.
John, if you look at the words in there, here's how we covered it: an approved application, which is the process that Brigida was talking about. Now, personally, I love what Bill said, but we were using a somewhat more perhaps conservative compromise here, since everything was at such an extreme. We were sort of doing it this way, where it had to be a resident of Oakland Mills asking, and it had to be an approved application, which is the process that Brigida has been using forever. Well, the village has been using. So we covered that. Yeah. The privacy, somebody mentioned privacy.
Well,
I-
no, that was one, if they're considered a candidate, once it's approved, then my privacy question is moot.
Yeah, I think anytime you file to be a public
Yeah.
figure, forget about it as far as privacy is concerned. You should be a servant of the people willing to serve, and they should know who you are. That's just my personal opinion. Again, I don't know if anybody else is on the line that wants to add it, but so that's it. We really would appreciate the board being a leader in this. Again, it's not been done before, but hey, Oakland Mills has been leaders in many, many ways. There is one other issue, if I can move on to that real quick, that on the election committee.
Mhm.
Okay, this is something that we're not asking you to deal with, but we want you to think about on behalf of the staff and on behalf of the residents. We think your election day is far too long. I believe is it 9, Brigida, or 9:30 to 5?
It's 8:30 to 5.
Oh my God, okay, it's even worse. So 8:30 to 5, we're expecting staff then to get there at probably 7:30 and the election committee to set up, blah, blah, blah. That's ridiculous. And it may have made sense years ago when that was the only option in town. It probably, something like that makes sense in River Hill, where that is the only option for their residents. But you now have 3 options. And you know, the mail-in, the electronic, and this. So you have fewer people doing this, and to require staff to be there for that period of time, then to require your volunteers to only start counting maybe 5:30 is unnecessary. Now, Brigida tells me there's a bylaw change that's prohibiting that, but I would really, this is personal, the committee agreed with this, but this is personal in terms of the approach. I would appreciate if it can be looked at, because I'm trying to figure out why in heaven's name it would have been put in bylaws. But it's just on behalf of the staff should not have to do this, really. I just think it needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Sure. I was actually trying to pull up bylaws while you were speaking because I thought it was in there as well.
It is in there. It's in the bylaw amendments.
Okay. So if this is something we wanted to change, I mean, essentially we're probably two elections out from changing it, I would think, because first we would have to put a bylaw amendment on an election ballot, and then the residents would have to vote majority in favor of that bylaw
Right.
amendment at that election, and then it would take effect in the following election. So maybe it's something we can look into, but it's not something we can make effective for this election for sure if it's in our bylaws.
Right, we understand that. My personal suggestion is that you pass a bylaw that says you don't do this. You know, you would set the times and dates by the board, not in a bylaw. You know, that would be the bylaw change, not play around with 10 to 3 again and lock yourself in. If at some point you want to go 100% electronic, which I hope you don't, but you know, why it's in the bylaws is beyond me. It's an operational thing, not a bylaw thing at all. I probably was one of the people that voted for. I don't know. I hope not, but.
So that's one where while I may agree with you that it's a long day, I don't necessarily agree that it should be taken out of the bylaws. Maybe the hours should be changed in the bylaws. The reason I say that is I don't know that I would want the administration of each election in the hands of the board. If it's in the bylaws, it means the residents have to agree to it if we want to change the way we're doing the election or change the hours of the election. So, you know, I could see us putting something forward to them where we say, that's a long day. Are you all good if we do it from only, 10:30 to 3 or something like that? And if the residents like that, they can vote for that. It would worry me if just the board, could basically with majority vote change the parameters of election day every year. But that's my personal thought on that one.
Well, thank you. On behalf of the committee, just want to thank you very much. And I think, frankly, we have an excellent committee and the staff help is outstanding. Brigida is just phenomenal. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you. Thanks to you and the committee for serving and also for putting thought into things and bringing things to us, versus just saying, we've done it this way for 55 years, so we'll do it this way for 55 more. The thought process is much appreciated. And as I said, we can bring this, this particular proposal back for old business as soon as the next meeting if we want to, think about this over the next couple of weeks and then discuss and vote it at the next meeting. A potential bylaw change or bylaw amendment to be put on the ballot would have to be something that's brought up as another item of new business, and publicly discussed. So that one might take a couple of more meetings if we're going to pursue that. Bill?
Just real quick, Ginny, it's good to see you back at the village board meeting.
Hey, thanks, Bill.
One thing I just thought of, I'm wondering if, like you can take shifts. So if, like one election monitor can take, the first half of the day and then another election monitor can take the second half if that works, or so you can shorten.
Oh, okay. Andrew, I was not referring to us. As a matter of fact, I was saying the staff.
Oh,
In order to be setting up for an 8:30, Brigida could say what time they get there. My guess is 7:30. And then they finish at 5, and then they have to, of course, be around to get the pizzas, right, Brigida? And get all the people lined up to, count ballots, et cetera. That's I'm concerned about, it just is unfair to the staff. Oh, we didn't even think of the election committee. We're getting paid so much. We don't mind how many hours we work. But thank you for thinking of us, Andrew.
And typically they do shifts, the election monitoring committee, throughout the day. And then there's a group, if they've done a shift earlier, they come back to tally the votes at the end. But the day does normally start about 8, and after the votes are done and counted, depending on how many in-person votes we have. I mean, I know prior to my tenure, they were there until 8:30 and 9 o'clock. So,
and then you have the mail-in ballots that have to be counted too. So, and we have a pretty good turnout in Oakland Mills, unlike some other villages. So, yeah, but thanks, Andrew, for thinking of us. I'll relay it to the committee.
Okay.
We should have been thinking about us. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. I'm assuming there's no further questions. All right, thanks so much. All right. Oh, we're on to the board chair report. Well, I guess I'll start with the easy stuff. People in Oakland Mills aren't shy about complaining, and I have to say I've heard no complaints and all positive things about our new Village Center merchants, Hip Hop Chicken and 7-Eleven. So I'm hoping everyone is having good experiences there and patronizing them. I've been to the 7-Eleven for a couple of fill-ups and a car wash, and then a stop inside a couple of times to see what kind of snacks they had, and it's nice. I was at work, so I couldn't make it for grand opening day, but I've been over there a few times, and seemed very nice. The staff was very nice and helpful. So it's a few people have said it's just good to see life on that corner. They've lived here a long time and have not seen life on that corner, or have never seen. In my case, I've never seen life on that corner. I've lived here 22 years, coming up on 23, and have never seen life on that corner. So it is nice to see. Let's see. On a maybe less pleasant note, the negotiations over the management contract are interesting, I guess. The CA staff met with the village managers. Was it the day after our last board meeting, Brigida? Yeah, it was the day after our last board meeting, and put a presentation in front of them that they didn't share. So the village managers could not get a copy of it and share it with all of us. Someone was able to take screenshots and see some of it. And essentially what the staff presented to the village managers was a proposal that, in my opinion, would ultimately lead to CA taking over the facilities. It laid out 3 options, one of which basically was a takeover of the facilities. That's not the recommended option. The recommended option would basically take all the facilities and create some kind of a centralized booking portal. And the idea was this would be like easier and a more personal touch for the residents, which I don't understand, because right now, if a resident wants to book something in Oakland Mills, they work with Ashley. They get someone face to face who knows Oakland Mills well versus going to some portal. But anyway, that's the idea behind it. And here's the kicker that really concerned me. CA would also take all the payments and then, via some formula to be determined later, disperse those payments to the village associations. Unlike what we do now, where we basically manage the contracts, we manage the rentals and leases, and we receive the funds from the rentals or the longer term leases of our properties. So that made me very uncomfortable, especially since I've already made you aware of the conversation that the 3 board chairs had with Sean and team about, I guess, a month or so ago now, where we were trying to get the formula for assessment share put into the contracts, and they said, well, no, we can't commit to anything like that. We don't know what it will be. well, in my opinion, if CA holds the assessment share and says they can't commit to a formula on that and have to, execute their fiduciary responsibility before the villages get a dime of that, what happens when they also hold all the rental income? We're completely at the mercy of whatever the CA decides the villages, quote unquote, need. So the board chairs have not had a chance to meet on this. In fact, it's not been formally presented to us. We just heard about it from our village managers. It sounds like the plan is actually for the staff to present this to the CA board at a future meeting before it's really even presented to the village boards. So Karen was nice enough to get on about an hour-long call with Brigida and me, I think the night after all this happened. And Karen was also blissfully unaware, as I was, until Brigida got us all filled in, so that she could be aware. And my ask of Karen during that meeting was, if this gets presented to the CA board, don't make any quick decisions here. This, and I believe, I don't know how many times I said this on the call, Karen, but I think I referenced this is going to be Neighborhood Center 2.0, multiple times. This is rolling out exactly the way that staff recommendation to take over or close the neighborhood centers was rolling out a few years ago, which also concerns me. In the meantime, Sean came back to the three of us, Kevin McAlilly, Brad Butler, and I, as follow-up to that meeting, because we had a few takeaways where we were going to look at some stuff with village finances, et cetera, and come back with a little more detail behind what we were asking, and basically said, hey guys, do you have anything for me yet? So the three of us kind of debated on how to reply to that, because Sean did not address the new elephant in the room when he asked us that question. It was like, we had this meeting and nothing has happened since. What do you have for us? So Brad, Kevin, and I, Brad and I actually had a phone call. We talked for a while. Kevin wasn't able to join us, so we kind of texted him and kept him in the loop. And ultimately, the response that Brad sent back on our behalf to Sean was, it would be helpful if he could clarify what impact the facility management options presented to the managers last week, now 2 weeks ago, would have on the terms of the contract that we need to complete by April 30th. That would help us make sure we're having the right conversation. So basically what we're saying to Sean is, the conversation seems to be changing here, from what we talked about in your conference room a few weeks ago. So Sean's response was, the facility analysis is a goal of the CA board and separate from the management contract. Also, any of the options would take a few years to implement. Therefore, the analysis does not affect the terms provided at this time. Let me know if you have any other questions. Which honestly is a little bit befuddling to me, because I don't know how what the staff proposes could happen if it doesn't affect the management contract. And if the assumption is the next management contract is going to be another 5-year contract, he says it would take a few years to implement. He doesn't say it would take more than 5 years to implement. So is CA going to come back and change the terms of the 5-year contract to implement this? To me, there was a lot of vagueness in that reply. So Brad, Kevin, and I kind of debated, well, now what do we say? And ultimately what we went back with was, thank you for the clarification. We think it's best at this point to let the team negotiating the contract details finish their process and see where we are relative to the goals we've set for the near term. Then pick up discussion about longer term strategic changes in the new fiscal year. So basically what we said to Sean was, well, then let the village managers and your staff continue negotiating the terms of this contract, because our kind of strategic vision was, pretty much shot down, and your strategy, or what the staff is recommending your strategy is not something that you want to talk about now. So we're not sure what we're not sure what there is to talk about, other than we need to have a contract by April 30th. So to be quite honest with all of you, Brad, Kevin, and I are a bit at a loss. And like I said, we haven't had another chairs meeting. Hopefully we can have one soon. The other board chairs have not really weighed in very much in our email string. We're kind of, like I said, at a loss, because now there's this proposal that could really change a whole lot. And we're being told by Sean that it's not part of the current negotiation. So what is it? So if you have questions for me, I'm afraid I don't have answers right now, but I want to give you an update on where things stand, really as of, well, actually this email 23 hours ago, as of this time last night. Bill?
Yeah, this is just my personal opinion, okay? And I'm saying in a public meeting, and I'm um, believing right now that Sean could see what I'm going to say here. Okay, let's do it one of two ways. We, the villages, run everything, and in the two-phase contract, we get the distribution share equation put in there, so we all know what we're doing, and we run everything on our facilities, period. Or CA, if you don't like that, if you want to pull a little bit more control away from us, pull a little more money away from us, et cetera, CA, take over everything. We're not going to be nickel and dime to death. We're not going to become your slaves. Okay, we're OMCA. We'll take care of business under contract with you our way. Or if you don't like that, then it's all your way. We're out of the picture. You take care of it through your porthole, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's just my personal opinion. And if Sean and the CA staff and the board want to see this, I'm talking to you too. Okay, so thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Andrew, you look like you're deep in thought there.
Yeah, so well, does CA have the ability, I guess, to just unilaterally take control of the the other barn or any other facilities that we have, or was there like a process? It seems like they're trying to work up to that, maybe, but so I don't know if you know about their legal authority to do that or not.
Well, they own it. I mean, they do own these facilities.
Okay. So okay then. Yeah.
I mean, what I question though is honestly, how CA could possibly manage this number of facilities with this much diversity as effectively as the villages do. Because managing the other barn and finding the right bookings for the other barn is a whole lot different than managing the Owen Brown Community Center and booking things there. These facilities are literally different sizes and shapes, conditions, et cetera. So, the point I was making when we were having some conversations among Brad and myself and village chairs, and I talked about this with Karen and Brigida, is a facility like the other barn might appear as if it's not being used to, that quote I used last time, maximize revenue, which I think was Sean's quote. But think about the other barn. If someone is renting the loft, you can't really use the downstairs for anything different because of ingress and egress. It's just, you can't effectively have separate events on both levels. So basically you rent the other barn for an event. If you are an organization that needs to have a gathering of 25, 30 people, the cost of the other barn to your organization is the same as if you're holding a wedding of 175 people. And we can't really adjust the cost of the other barn because the cost to OMCA to set up, tear down, and clean the other barn is the same, whether it's an affair of 30 people or 175 people. Right, so that's the story on the other barn. Now there are some other facilities, in other villages where you can probably have more things cycle through there because they're not as large. So they're not going to host, big weddings because they don't have the capacity to do that, but they can host more frequent, smaller gatherings because they can charge a price that's more reasonable for those more frequent, smaller gatherings. So people are going to hold them there. you know, so that's just an example of where the villages, you know, for whatever reason, years ago when they were planned, you know, were different types of facilities were put in different villages, and then the villages managed to the type of facility they have. So, you know, when I look at a proposal like this, my first thought is how does centralizing it all in some portal and trying to basically churn people through the facilities as quickly as possible, you know, lead to a better experience and a more personal touch for residents? It sounds like a more, you know, corporate cold experience. And like I said, when you have a facility like the other barn, which primarily caters toward larger, you know, kind of important in your life events like weddings and, you know, big parties, things like that. You don't want to book that through a portal. You want to come visit with Ashley and have her walk you through and talk you through everything, and then sit down with you and go through the contract and tell you it's all going to be all right. So what was in that presentation as the benefits just doesn't add up to me. The only benefit I'm seeing is CA benefits from collecting all the money and then deciding how much is going to come back to the villages.
Yeah, Jonathan, I will just add, hopefully I'm not muted. I question CA's ability to actually successfully rent when they have a hard time even booking tennis courts properly. I know of several examples where I think I told you and Brigida this, where they double booked the Stevens Forest pool for the swim team picnic and another event CA wanted to have, which I know several parents that I had talked to after this happened who were not happy with that. The other thing is, and I didn't think about this when we met, is what is the centralized payment system that they're going to use? What is this centralized booking system? Because I don't think it exists now. And they just rolled out a new, and first of all, as Bill said, this is public. I would say this in a public meeting. We just rolled out a new customer, what's it called? A CRM, a customer management system to help people.
Customer relationship management.
Thank you, CRM, yeah,
Yeah.
customer relationship management system to help people book classes at the gyms, things like that. And that rollout, as much respect as I have for the IT staff, that rollout did not go very smoothly. And I think it's frustrating a lot of people because if you live in Columbia, but you're not a member, you now have to call in to make to make a reservation if you're just going to sign up for a single class, things like that. So they've kind of cut residents off. So I would just wonder when they talk about these centralized payment systems, like what system are you talking about? I would suspect that it's not something that they can have up and ready to go in the next year or two. So I'm curious about that as well. Like what booking system are you planning to use? Like, are you upgrading other systems and this is going to be part of it? Like, what are you talking about? I don't know that CA, like you said, I don't think that CA is in a good position right now to be able to take over the management of these buildings.
And they didn't have follow-ups to any of those.
Right.
What the systems they were going to use, how they were going to distribute the payments, how they were going to work with us as far as staffing. According to our questions during the meeting, we were going to be able to keep our staff. Our staff was still going to be able to do the same thing, but they were going to be handling they were going to have this centralized system. They were doing the contracts and they were collecting all the payments, but they didn't have a plan as to how they would distribute the payments, what time frame, how we were paying our staff. They didn't have really any next steps. They just basically presented challenges, opportunities on one screen, and then options to meet those challenges and opportunities. And
is it mostly like when they talked about it, is it a self-service system? Like
well, so when they originally started talking about it, the idea that the village managers took it as is that there would be one site that people could go to and it would have all of the different venues, different centers, and then they would be able to check, they would each have their availability calendar listed, and somebody would be able to just go in and block off a time. And from that time, then they would be put in touch with someone from our facility. This was after we had asked them the question, but then they would have to go back to them to do the contract and make the payments. But that was as far as they had gotten.
So they don't even have a process in place to make this
They
work.
do not.
Right.
They do not.
I'm wondering if the CA board didn't want this change in like facility structure. Is that something the CA board could stop if they wanted to, or they would have no authority to stop it? Or
It's very interesting. That is a very good question, Andrew, because we have had closed meetings to talk about the management contract, but mostly we've been informed. We haven't been asked to make any decisions. And we've also been told that we don't actually get a choice. So I'm trying to make sure, hopefully I'm not divulging anything, but that they're just informing us of what's going on, which I disagree with that. If they want to change this, I think if they want to change the structure of how the villages work, I think they should do it publicly. The contract is something entirely different, but talk about what you're going to do publicly, include the residents, let everybody see what it is you're trying to do. Let everybody understand what the end game is, which right now we don't really understand. Part of the problem is we don't understand what the end game is. We don't understand why they're doing this. And when I saw the sheets from that presentation, they drew conclusions for which they had no data to back up how they came to those conclusions. How did you come to this conclusion? Maybe what you're doing is exactly the right thing for Columbia and the villages, but I don't know. Because I have not seen anything to back up why you're telling me what you're telling me. There's a lot of ambiguous conclusions that you're throwing at me. And I'm not comfortable in making a decision to change things with what you've given me right now. But
I
yeah,
always
pulling
like to take a what problem are you trying to solve approach.
yes.
And I'm not sure what problem this attempts to solve, right? We heard two proposals from the EMC earlier tonight. They identified problems they're trying to solve. They didn't just come up with something and say, because we think this feels good, right? I don't know what problem this is trying to solve. You know, is there an issue with the facilities? If so, I would hope we're made aware of it. But we haven't been.
Yeah, what survey data do you have? Do you
Right.
have survey data backing this up? Where are the where are the testimonials from customers that said that this doesn't work for them? Where is that information? We've seen none of that. But yeah, bring your case, make your case in public, and let the cards fall where they may.
It was our understanding that they will be presenting this at an upcoming CA board meeting this month. Now, I checked the agenda when it was put out. It was not on,
It's not on this week's agenda, no.
it's not on the upcoming meeting, so I don't know if it will be at the end of the month meeting. I will say that the village managers had a lot of comments and questions and also sent a follow-up very long email with questions and concerns to Sean and members of the staff that made the presentation.
I won't give up the names, but I know there are at least 2 other villages that are very upset about what's going on. 3, let me make it 3. 3 villages that I know of other than ours that are not happy with the negotiations on the management contract and what they're seeing. So.
Yeah, so that's what I have on that. I will keep you informed if somehow another village board chair gathering is called between this and the next meeting. I'll let you all know that it's about to happen. I don't there's a lot going on, outside of just village stuff. So, several of us just haven't had as much time to think about these things as we'd like to. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely a big concern. And again, until I see something to suggest otherwise, I'm going to continue to refer to this as Neighborhood Center 2.0, because my gosh, if the residents and then the press were kind of fired up, over that one, then I don't think this one's going to go over too well once it really gets out there. Because this is more than shuttering a few relatively small buildings. This is basically CA not just basically taking over all the facilities in the villages, but also I'm going to say taking over village finances. So the association that our residents are members of will not really have any direct control over its revenue anymore. CA will determine the revenue. Jenny, as a board member emeritus and CA board member emeritus, I can call on you. I know you're dying to weigh in on this. Go ahead.
You're muted, Ginny.
Jenny, you're still muted.
John, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of my one, I'm upset because I'm hearing from people too that this is not a real public process and what's really going on. And that's inexcusable. When I was on the board, we had a task force consisting of village managers and others that actually worked on all this together with the board. So this approach is totally unacceptable. And I felt we had a say, and it was a cooperative thing with the villages. Of course, not everybody agreed, but at least it was working together. I think you hit the nail on the head though, with if they control all this property, which they do technically, it is their property, but if they get control, they can sell or close a neighborhood center and just say, it's not making anything and it's going to cost us 200 grand to repair that. Nope. And they can do that. So I think you may be talking about what one of the hidden agendas is here. I think you're right. Thank you.
Thanks, Ginny. Any questions for me on any board chair stuff before we go to Karen's update? All right, I'll send it over to Karen for CCR report.
Okay, I'm glad we talked about the management contract because I don't really have much for this week since the CA board has not met since before the last time we all met. So the management contract was a good thing to bring up tonight, Jonathan, to talk through that. This Thursday's meeting, we'll be looking at the draft budget. I am hopeful that at the very least in our meeting this Thursday, I'm hoping we will get the votes to not increase the cost of memberships for residents, to hold the line to what it was the previous year so that it just doesn't go up that standard 3%. So what happens every year with the budget is, from what I can tell, is we get the same they ask us what we want, and then they produce the exact same budget, only with a 3% increase to account for the additional annual charge that they're going to be taking in. And so, one of the things I've been working on, and, I'm one of 3 members who believes in this. So hopefully the elections will produce something a little bit different. But bringing value to the residents, right? And so for now, if I can get people to vote not to increase the cost of memberships for the coming fiscal year, that will be, I think, a decent win for what we're working on, and then we'll see what happens next year. But we have 2 meetings this month, this Thursday and the 28th. And then I just want to bring to everybody's attention, another thing that I've been asking about is CA board policies. You guys know that last year I introduced a policy around easements. And I keep that guy fired up. He's ready to be reintroduced at any time. However, one of the things I notice is that the board doesn't actually know what its policies are. So we will have a working session in March to talk about board policies. I would like to see a database. Doesn't have to be super elaborate because there's not like the databases that Jonathan works with for the IRS. It's not that big, right? These are board policies. They need to be on the CA website. They need to be easily found when you're looking for something, when you're doing something. You need to be able to see, oh, that's the policy that applies when we are in a board meeting and we're talking about whatever we're talking about. The applicable board policies need to be included in the packet so the board knows what they're functioning under. I think there are some people who want to put a sunset policy in place so that some of these policies get reviewed every so often. I'm totally fine with that. But we need a policy about policies. They need to all be transparent for the residents so everybody can see them. I think it would make the board's life a little bit easier. But that'll be coming up in March. So something to look forward to. And that's all I've got. Thanks, guys. Bill?
Just real quick, Karen, talking about policy, when you and I and Jenny and many people worked on the reimagining of the play areas, that we did come up with, I think it was 2 or 3 policy statements that were very clear, and the board voted unanimously to accept that. And one of the comments from many board members, if my memory's correct, was we really like the policy and we like the process for determining policy. Okay, so that as you go through this, you might bring that up with the board that, hey, this is a process that worked. We had, public surveys, et cetera. So you get that in there as a way to deal with things. And that could carry over in dealing with the management contract and the money and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that, my opinion, there's an opportunity there, but it's your baby, you rock it. I'm not there. You've got the tough job. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
All right. Thank you very much, Karen. Brigida, on to you.
Okay, I have my village manager's report. So as you might have guessed, the election monitoring committee and I met on January 30th, and I am simply a facilitator of the EMC, but they are the ones who basically run the election. I do a lot of the legwork, but they run the election. So it was a good meeting, and it was really good discussions. The candidate packets and election information is all available on the website, and candidate packets are available as of today. Amy has put everything up there, and you can either complete an application and send it to me, or people that are interested in running can let me know they want a physical application or packet, and they can certainly come in and pick one up during regular office hours. Some other items that we are currently looking to hire 2 more weekend event facility assistants for the upcoming rental season. We've shared it on Facebook, as well as I learned that I have a free ad space through ADP. And so I'll probably be putting it up there. Hopefully we'll get some feedback. I'd really like to have them, start training when we start getting rentals really heavily in April. As Jonathan mentioned, we met with the CA team last week. We were not aware of what they were meeting with us over. And frankly, we were all taken aback a little bit by the presentation. And like I said, we did ask questions following their presentation, and then we had a meeting afterwards and also came up with many questions and concerns and sent that to them. We have not received any response regarding that, nor have we received any response from all of our management contract changes that we proposed. They asked for reasonings for the changes. We in turn, we have 2 village managers who are representing all the village managers. We got together, they submitted something, and we've received no response from that either. They being the CA team that regularly meets with us during a village managers meeting, will be at our meeting tomorrow. I'm imagining we're gonna have it's a virtual meeting anyway. So hopefully we'll get some sort of feedback there, but I will certainly keep everybody in touch with what is happening. And then I just wanted to mention, I thought the 7-Eleven grand opening ribbon ceremony was really nice. It was really a great community day, and county executive was there, board members were there, some past and present, staff members past and present. So it was a really nice day. It was great to meet the owners. So it was very exciting. And I think so far, I think our 2 new openings have really gone well. And like John said, people have really been receptive to them. So it's really, I know our parking lot is very full with hip hop, fish and chicken. So, it's all been great. But, depending on the weather, most likely we will be working remotely tomorrow. But I will, of course, put up a announcement first thing in the morning when I wake up. Well, when my alarm goes off, let's put it that way. So that's it. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Brigida?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Brigida, when is the deadline for submitting our applications?
March 7th at 4 p.m.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks very much, Brigida. Okay, we do have an require a closed session, so so that we don't have to keep folks waiting around if they don't want to when we come out of closed session. We will do the bulletin board now. After the bulletin board, I'll take a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of consultation with staff, personnel, consultants, attorneys, or other persons in connection with pending or potential litigation. When we go into closed session, we will put everyone who is not on the board or on the staff in a waiting room. And then we will bring you back from the waiting room after the closed session if you choose to stick around to announce the outcome of the closed session. So I'm going to go to the bulletin board now, and I'll start with Amy.
I don't have anything.
All right, Brigida.
No.
Okay, Karen.
Just come to resident speak out. Tell us what you think.
All right, Paulette.
Nope, nothing.
Okay, Andrew. All right, Bill.
Nothing.
Okay, and I don't think I have anything either. So that will conclude the bulletin board. All right, so we do have a legal matter, a legal architecture matter for closed session. Is there a motion to go to closed session for consultation with staff, personnel, consultants, attorneys, or other persons in connection with pending or potential litigation? I'll take a motion from Bill. And that is at 8:09 p.m. I have to do the online form here, 8:09 p.m. Motion from McCormack. And do I have a second? Second from Freed. Okay, all in favor of closed session? 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 0. So I'm going to mark aye, 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 and an absent for, whoops, and an absent for Warren, who is not here tonight. Okay, so at sorry, at 8:10 p.m. we're going to go into closed session. So Brigida or Amy, if you could put everyone not on the board in the waiting room and then stop recording, please.